as I do almost every session, I want to reiterate the point that what helps you most, whether you like it or not, is to sit still. Now, I don't like to sit still, but to sit still doesn't mean to be tense. It doesn't mean never to move something if you think you're injuring it, like an ankle. If you move, though, it should be precise and quick and very, very seldom. I'm not saying not to do it, but the thing that basically changes our lives is sitting still. And that means sitting not only still so your neighbor thinks you're sitting still, but so that you yourself know you're sitting still. So the inside of your mouth is quiet. Your fingers are quiet. Anyway, we have infinite numbers of tricks to distract ourselves with. Some of them are so minute that no one knows about them but me, myself, and I. But I know. So you're not doing any of this for me or for anyone else. You're doing it for your own little self. Now today, since I, for whatever reason, want to do it, we're going to do a little practice just as we sit here. Now I'm going to tell you that if I were sitting here, some of the thoughts that would pop up into my mind, maybe not as much as they would have at one time, but if there's one thing I know, it's what goes on in people's heads as they sit. So I'm going to say something, and I'm going to ask you what the practice is with that, okay? All right? I don't think I'm doing very well. I'm having a very poor day sitting. What is the practice?
Having a thought I'm not doing very well. Having a thought I'm having a poor day at sitting, and
Right.
what does this feel like?
All right, leave out the second part for now, okay? All right. Actually, I think my practice is calming down. I think now I'm beginning to see what insight is. Okay? Anybody? All right, I want somebody to say it.
Having a thought, I think I'm calming down.
Having a thought, I think I'm calming down. Having a thought, I think I know now what insight is. Having a thought, this is all really stupid. I'm giving you the answer there. You know, I struggle with this now for 5 days, and I really can't see what I'm getting out of it. Okay? Anybody?
It's only been 2 days.
All right. Anybody? I want you to say it, see, because I want you to know this the way you know the back of your hand, okay? Right. Having a thought I'm not getting anything out of it. Of course you're not. Okay? What is there to get out of it, see? You're just falling. Having a thought, I noticed some real maturity in this session. All right, by now you have the point, okay? Now let me see if I can think of some that are less obvious. Or maybe you can. We have a wide variety of things we play with. I can't stand it another minute. I just can't stand it another minute. What's the practice? Having a thought, I just can't stand it another minute, okay? However, supposing you get up and run out, what's your practice? I've seen people run out, no great deal. If they run out, they run out. So, what's the practice?
Label the thoughts as you're running.
Running experience.
Noticing that I'm running out of the zendo, okay? Okay? Having a thought, though, it would be really better to stay in the zendo. Okay? Yeah, good people stick it out, right? Having a thought that good people stick it out. Right? Well, this is all amusing, but what about enlightenment? Okay? What's the practice? Right. Some people, of course, have it all together. I don't know why I don't. Right. Having a thought that some people have it all together, but not me. Okay. Well, there has to be some sense in this. I just don't quite see it yet. What is the practice? Right. Having a thought there must be some sense in this. I just don't see it yet. See, all the time you're playing these games, what are you doing? You're falling, okay? See, all those are distractions from the real game, which is you're just falling. We don't want to fall, so what do? We think. How about a few daydreams? Well, let me see. Oh, we have to be polite here, but anyway. Oh, he's so wonderful. And after session, I'll talk to him. What is a practice?
Having a thought.
Have a thought. He's so wonderful, and after session, I get to talk to him. See, if there's, however, as long as there's any emotion left in what you say, you keep labeling. Okay? Now, practically everything that's running around is something that can be labeled. So, who was it? Cindy said, and then we experience it. First we label, and then we experience. You can do it the other way, it doesn't matter, but so, well, having a thought, I'm no good, I'm hopeless. Having a thought, I'm no good, I'm hopeless. Having a thought, I'm no good, I'm hopeless. It's evening out a little bit. What does it feel like? Okay? No thought, just that. Okay? Just for a second, being who you really are, which isn't anything. Just that. Okay? Just for a second. But that's very tight. It's very unpleasant. I don't want to do that. What is the practice then? Having a thought, it's very tight, very unpleasant, and I don't want to do that. Okay? And you keep that one up for a while. Okay, I'll try it again. Oh, I just don't like that. I just don't like to feel like that. Nobody should have to feel like that. What's the practice? Having a thought, I just don't want to feel like that thing. Now, that's straightforward practice. Many of you get that quite well. But then there comes the next layer. See? Well, I don't care what. I just don't want to do any of it. And what's more, I'm not going to. What's the practice?
Having a thought.
Right. Or sometimes you'll do your best just not to do anything. Can we just not do anything? Is it possible? I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to pay attention to anything. I'm not going to experience anything. So I do my best to do this. I'm just going to sit here. I'll show her. What is the practice?
Having a thought that I'm just going to sit.
Well, I'm just going to sit here. See, you cannot avoid your practice. See, I'm always amused when people call me up and they say, "Well, I had a call from Indiana during the break. I just don't feel good. It's so hard, and I don't care. I just don't want to practice." Well, fine with me. You just go do that for a week, okay? What happens? See, we cannot avoid practicing. There's nothing hard than to try not to practice. Okay? I can say, well, she can say that, but no one can get lost in a good daydream better than I can. So off we go into our daydream, see? And of course the practice obviously is to be aware of the daydream, but supposing you refuse, see? I like my daydream. A lot better than sitting here, okay? Then what's the practice? I would say in some cases, as I've told a few of you, make sure you really daydream. Don't stop, see? Don't let yourself have a moment when you're not daydreaming. Do you think that's easy? Incredibly hard, see? All right, I've said a few of the surface type things that occur to me. Now I want you all to think, and some of you to come up with things that you found hard as you sit through session to practice with. Yeah, first Tobin.
The little plans, what I'm going to do in between sittings or after sitting, like, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom, or can't wait for that drink of water, just little talking to myself.
Little talking to yourself, okay. Now why is that hard to practice with?
Well, just as a matter of labeling, it's easy just to think those things, like all this other stuff is just thinking, but this is really the me part coming in.
This is your real life. This is your real life, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to make my little plans because this is my real life, see. I'll get back to the other stuff. Yeah. That's a very good point Tobin makes. See, there is no real stuff. There's only what? Stuff. There's nothing that's significant. See, but I just had this great insight as to the nature of the universe. Hmm? See, I know. I play with that stuff. What are you going to do with that? Anybody?
Having a thought. This great
Having a thought, see? See, if you can think about the nature of the universe, it's no different than thinking about what you're going to get at the supermarket. That is not what we're talking about as realization. All right, Dean?
Sometimes I'll decide that there's a specific sensation that I'm not experiencing it, and if I did, then this would fix everything.
That would fix everything. Can you hear what he's saying? Dean is saying that sometimes he decides there's a specific sensation. See, one that's more important than the others, I suppose. If I only could really experience that, that would be the secret. Having a thought. So what does sitting come down to? See, everybody here is doing some variation on this. It's not good or bad. It's just what we're doing. And you can say, well, in a way it's what everybody's doing. What is the difference between years of practice and not years of practice? Or is there a difference?
I would think that the observer becomes more dispassionate.
The observer becomes more dispassionate. Well, the observer is always dispassionate when you have the true observer, which it just is watching itself. It has no, there's nothing could go on with the observer. See, one mark of maturing practice is we're willing to be quite content when our consciousness, you might say, is real off. See, I would never beat myself up for that. Now, what is the difference then between that and somebody who's never practiced at all?
Beat themselves up.
They beat themselves up. You're right. See, I know by now, yes, we all have to practice. That's polishing the mirror. But in a certain sense, we're going to be just as we are. And that's an even more profound insight, that we're always going to be just as we are. We have to polish the mirror, and you know what I'm talking about, the two verses written for the fifth patriarch. We have to make some effort in our practice to be mindful, to be conscious, to see what's going on. On the other hand, nobody does it all the time, and that's okay. Now, as I say, the difference between someone who's never practiced, this is a very important point, and someone who's practiced, say, for 30, 40 years is what? Diane said it in a way, but I want some of you to think about this and maybe say it in a different way.
To be content with what they're experiencing at the time rather than trying to change it.
To be content with whatever is going on. You might not even be experiencing it. You might be up in Never Never Land. See? Yeah.
Will you even be content? Is content something?
Well, even content is slightly dualistic. It's hard to say these things without maybe saying something like that. It's not even content or not content. You just keep moving on. It's like falling. You just keep going. And you're doing at any given moment what you're doing. So this is a very confusing point in practice. We have to practice with everything we have. On the other hand, it's always perfect. We're always perfect in being what we are. There's always that two-sided, it's a real vision. Neither side is correct, see? There isn't such a thing as being correct. Yeah. Liz?
Do you think you can get to the point where you experience that falling or just being with what is, where you may not even know what's going on without going through the phase of knowing what's going on in terms of the five skandhas?
Right. Well, as I said the other day, as Dogen Zenji says, don't think that to be enlightened you have to know you're enlightened. In fact, if you know you're enlightened, I'd label it, see, in a hurry. See, an enlightened person just isn't thinking about any of that. They're doing what? What are they doing? Huh?
Living.
Functioning, yeah. That means they're doing whatever they're doing. And all such thoughts about being enlightened, being wise, being aware, being conscious, being mature, see, those are all to be labeled. So practice as you're doing it, and most of you are doing just fine, is just whatever comes up. Having a thought, having a thought, having a thought. As much as possible, return to the state of just experiencing whatever you are at this second, which can be anything. It can be tight, it can be relaxed, it can be jittery, it can be unpleasant, it can be pleasant. Even those, of course, are comments by the little mind, but yeah, Claudia.
I think functioning, I mean most of us, in order to do something, you have to be motivated. And in order to be motivated, there has to be some passion, some commitment, some...
Oh, Claudia. If that came up my head, you know what I'd do? I'd label it. See, motivation isn't something that I decide on. It might last a little while, but I can tell you what's going to happen to it. True motivation comes when we're not caught in our little self as much. Then when you're responding to that which is yourself, which is everything you meet, you'll be motivated. We're not motivated because we don't really think that's ourselves. I don't mean to think up here. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Could you say something more about falling and what that is?
Falling is falling, if we take it literally, you're falling off the building and you're going down. It's just a series of seconds which have no duration, which is what we are at any given moment. I am no time and no space. And in that sense, there is no falling. But in the human sense, I am time and space, so I'm always falling. And the two are the two sides of this thing I'm talking about. And what we are is not one side or the other. We're neither one. We're just what? Falling. Right. But all the thoughts we add on, all the fancy Zen books about Satori and all that, label, 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 see? See, we've had a lot of fun, of course, since I told that story. I've had infinite additions come into Daishan. But suppose you picture the falling as going a little more slowly than it really, of course, would. And, you know, you go past the 9th floor and you have this thought. Well, I didn't even get any applause from the 9th floor, you know. Mm-hmm. And here's my lovely red shirt shaking in the wind and nobody even noticed. And I went past the 8th floor and I put on my best form. I was falling very, very well. But nobody's even noticing what I'm doing. They don't seem to care that I'm falling. You see what I mean? Now the 6th floors, those people are a little nicer. See, they applaud as I went past. See, this is what we're doing. We're really just doing what? We're falling, and we're looking all around us for approval as we fall. Do you see what I mean? We are really crazy. Absolutely crazy. Because we're just falling, I can assure you of that. Because we are no time and no space, but since we're human, that looks to us like a lot of things, and we're just going right on through it. Utterly calm, yeah. Yes?
I want to ask this, is the falling is in time and space?
Well, from our human beings' point of view, because definitely as a human being, I'm going to see the 9th floor, the 8th floor, the 7th floor. As I go, I mean, if I'm awake, I'm going to see what I'm... But there is no falling. Why? Anybody want to venture on that one?
No place to fall. No one there to fall.
There's no one to fall, see? See, if you are no time and no space, you can't be anything. And that's who you are, see? But since we don't get that, we're looking for approval as we fall through space, and we're looking for whatever.
So you're saying then that this falling is the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
On the other hand, there is no falling. But that's not right either, see? Because that's philosophy. See, that's like this as opposed to that. We're not either one, we're just... Anyway, somewhere when I get my wits around, I want to start talking on the Heart Sutra, which is just about this, and it's the most basic text in Mahayana Buddhism, because it's attempting to make this really, really clear. No old age and death, and no end to old age and death. I mean, it gives a series of things like that. See, they're both true, and yet neither one is true. So, But most human beings practicing are caught very much into one side of it, which is there is old age and death, and I'm going to try to avoid it. And we avoid it by thinking, worrying, feeling guilty, daydreaming, having opinions. We're trying to avoid old age and death, but you can't do it by thinking there is no old age and death. See, that's philosophy. It's interesting, but it doesn't help. You have to learn what it means to be the falling. Now, we don't want to be the falling. We want to look for the applause, the approval. And we don't want to just experience our life. I said to someone this morning, suppose you had a girlfriend over for the weekend and you had breakfast. Time to start the day, right? No, she curls up in a chair. She says, I'm going to daydream. See? So she's busy daydreaming in her chair, and you're kind of looking at her and say, well, come on, let's go to the beach. And, no, I've got a daydream, see? Well, let's go out to lunch. No, I've got a daydream. See, if anyone did that, what would you think they were? Crazy. What do you think you're doing? Because we do it intermittently, we don't think we're crazy, see? See, what she really does is have a quick little daydream when no one's looking. Then she goes and walks on the beach a little bit. But even while she's walking on the beach, she's half listening to her friend and thinking, well, I wonder if he really went out with that other girl. See? She's daydreaming, see? It's intermittent, and that's why we think we're not crazy. But we are. Now, it's so clear if you had a friend who curled up in an easy chair and just nothing would budge her, because what she really wants to do is what? Daydream, see? I've got these wonderful things to think about. I don't want to go for a jog. I'll get all sweaty. See, but we're all doing that, but we're clever, and we hide it. So what percentage of the time are you curled up on the chair, or even curled up in your Zaflu? Say, looks good. I know. I do it too. See? It'd be much better to say, last 5 minutes of this period I'm going to be daydreaming. Or, I'm going to daydream the whole period and I will do nothing else. Either one works. Then the daydreaming becomes conscious, and of course it's no fun. We don't want to be conscious, is what I'm trying to tell you. If you're conscious, you're going to hurt. Some of the time, at least. We're going to be reminded that we're mortal and that we're falling, so we don't want that reminder. We don't want to hurt. So I've said this before, there's some Zen teacher in Japan, and he only asks the students one question. I mean, I think I should take this up, be a lot easier. All he does when they come in is say, what percent? Covers everything. What percent? See? Are you daydreaming, thinking, opinionating, judging, valuing? What percent? See? 5% of your sitting? And that's fine. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Now it varies, depending if you've been really sitting with your best for some years. It goes way down. But we're all a little bit crazy. And don't get the idea we're not. We're a little bit crazy. So to be non-crazy means to be in touch with reality. I don't like reality very well, see? How about you? Now, some of us know we don't like reality. In fact, if you sit for a while, you really find out how much you like reality, because that's your percent, see? What is the thing, like Claudia's question, the motivation that finally begins to enlarge the amount of time that you're present. What is a prime motivation? Maybe I have to leave that.
Pain.
What kind of pain?
Well, like physical pain would do.
Physical pain will, in a sense, teach you something, but I'm talking now about our whole life when we're just not particularly in physical pain, okay?
Well, it's what Liz usually, that sentence that she has at the end of each sitting, which is, do not squander our life.
Do not squander our life. It's in that area. See, it has a number of ingredients, and the longer we sit, and the more we, one way or another, get back in that present moment, this motivation keeps growing. See? It has to, because the more you're in touch with life, the more you'll be willing to serve it, be with it, take care of it, and want to do that. See? So after a while, you will not permit yourself to spend much time daydreaming. Because when you do, what this is in you that has to grow can't grow, it's blocked. Yeah.
For me, what's really been over the years, it's been I come to more and more realize there's no alternative.
Yeah, but even that's a mark of maturing sitting, to use the awful word. Yeah. Now, I don't expect someone who's been sitting, say for a year or so, to think that practice is the most important thing in life. Why should we think what we don't think? That's being dishonest. However, there is something in us that keeps pulling, and if we're not too blind to that, if we keep doing our practice, then the motivation slowly changes. See, I could care less about being something called enlightened. What would that be? See? But there are some things I care about now. And that's what I put my time in on. I mean, somebody has said, if you want to know what you're like, see where you put your time. See? Even just to spend all our time on self-improvement. We have to take good care of ourselves, but I think one reason New Age stuff is so painful is because it's so self-centered. A lot of it, not all of it, some of it. Anyway, to some degree, practicing well in session comes down to something that we can't put our finger on. Because it exists in each one of us, nobody would be here if that were not here. No one would go through this if that were not here. And it does enlarge very, very, very slowly, which is what we really want. What we really want is not to have a lot of money, to be famous, to be recognized, to be the best in our field. There's nothing wrong with those things, but that's not truly what we want. Those things sometimes come along. Fine, money's a useful thing. But if you spend most of your time worrying about money, a few of you here do, and so far your practice is still embryonic. And that's not a criticism, we're just as we are. Okay, well, that's enough. Talks like this kind of, in a way, can throw us off. I want you to go right back to where we started here. Anything that comes up, having a thought that, and then return to the body, which is the falling, as it is. And very, very slowly over time, something is growing. Or you can always tell it. It's perfectly obvious. So, you can go through this muggy afternoon and you'll dislike some of it. It's fine. You can have all sorts of thoughts about it. That's fine. You can resist. That's fine. But what is not fine is to back off more than once in a while. I mean, if you do, you hurt yourself, that's all. It's perfectly human to back off now and then. Sometimes for weeks and months we back off, but we can't do that. See, that's what I'm saying. So we're right in the soup again, of practice. There's no one here that I think could now not practice. You may think you can, but I doubt it.